Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having us back. Thank you for tuning in. There was a little bit of an emergency last week, and we had to take a little bit of a break, so we're so happy to be back. Tonight, we are talking about thanking God for everything, even the no's. And of course, being the people that we are, we really want to delve into what that means cognitively, what are therapeutic interventions for acceptance and humility and reframing, and little exercises that you can start doing now to help train your brain properly.
Absolutely. So it can be so difficult for us to hear the word no. So let me jump in with the Bible verse for this week and kind of delve into some of the things Nikki just shared with you guys. So the Bible verse of today's week is Ephesians 5, verses 19 through 20. Speaking to one another with psalms, hymns, and song from the Spirit, sing and make music from your heart to the Lord, always giving thanks to God the Father for everything, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. So that verse to me just means that no matter what happens in your life, the good, the bad, the ugly, the pretty, give thanks, because there's always a reason, there's always a plan behind everything that happens in your life.
And we know that on paper, it's so easy to give thanks, or just be grateful, find the silver lining. But we know that's not generally how our brains work. We have to be trained that way. So let's dig into what that looks like from a psychological background.
Absolutely. So there's this term that we kind of use to kind of explain accepting things in our life, right? And that's the power of acceptance. And I want to start out by sharing a quote with you guys. Of course, there is no formula for success, except perhaps an unconditional acceptance of what life is and what it brings. What does that mean, Nikki?
You know, I think for me, the power of acceptance in that quote is part of the beauty in life is that it is unpredictable, right? We don't learn generally unless there's a powerful moment that helps us to learn how our experiences shape us. You can't experience joy without tragedy, right? You don't know the true feeling of joy until you've known the true feeling of pain.
Absolutely.
And so with everything, you know, there's an opposite in life. And so to fully experience life, you have to be able to experience everything. And that means accepting things that you don't always want to accept in that moment.
Absolutely.
Because acceptance is, I think of it as like seeing, you know, we get caught up, let's say, where we're at. And if you were to be an astronaut and see the world from its entire view and in its entirety, it's this bold, powerful feeling. And that's what I feel acceptance is drawing that lens back and zooming out and seeing the big picture for what it is.
I love that you said that, seeing things with the big picture. So many times we'll experience a certain situation in our lives and it just makes us feel like crap. Like, wow, I really wanted it to go this way. I saw things going this way for my life, but obviously a door slammed in our face. That was a big no. Some people that we find that we work with kind of get down about it. They get depressed. They kind of wallow in pity, like, this is what I wanted for my life. But sometimes no just kind of means there's a better way, right? Sometimes you have to accept what happened to you, dig deep and find that meaning and say to yourself, what else could this mean? What else could this bring for me?
And so that leads us into reframing. So reframing is a technique that essentially creates a different way of looking at something and changes its meaning. In therapy, we call it cognitive reframing. Right? And so it's looking at things through a different lens. It's not just finding the positive. So although I don't want to take the power away of like being a positive person, sometimes when we only look at the positive of a bad situation, one, it doesn't allow you to fully acknowledge the whole situation because you're avoiding the bad stuff. Or two, it doesn't allow you to accept sitting in the badness, right? It's automatically, well, I have to be positive. No, you don't. You can, like you said, accept those crappy feelings, but still reframe a situation.
I just have to disclose and share something. If you guys have been watching this show or following us since we began, you will remember me talking about always being this positive Patty, this person that sees the glass half full. But like you were saying, sometimes when you have that super positive outlook all the time, there's some things you can miss. You can miss the meaning in it. And that takes me back to when we were in Compton helping some delinquent youths or some youths that went down the wrong path. And I was just so positive with this family, right? And then everybody's, first of all, externship is a little bit scary because you provide therapy to a family while everybody else watches you and judges you behind a one-way mirror.
Two-way mirror.
Two-way mirror, I'm sorry. But me being so positive, I go back and their feedback is, Taylor, you did an awesome job, don't get me wrong, but like by being so positive and not letting the family kind of sit in their nose, if you will, sit in the trauma that they've been through, you might be missing some big pieces there.
Yeah, and so that's such a great example. And at the end of externship, we gave her a grand chat as a memory.
I should have brought that today. Yes.
Right. So, and like you said, like it's great to be positive, but sometimes you miss key moments in life.
Right.
So accepting, learning to sit in it. So why do some people sit in it for too long? Why are some people so positive, and how do other people find that balance?
I think some people sit in, when you say that question, sit in acceptance too long, or sit in like the pity?
Sit in the pity. And why do some people straight go to like you for the positive and acceptance and sometimes miss the pieces?
That's a great question, because I'm somebody that does sit and misses some of those pieces. I think for people who identify with my characteristics, I just think it's seeing the glass half full allows you to not be down for too long, not experience anxiety for too long, not experience the bad, icky feelings. And that could be, for me, maybe avoidance a little bit, just not letting myself go through or feel the emotions or understand that bad things in life happen. I'm going to get no's. I'm going to experience some turmoil. I'm going to experience some things. But by like living up here at this level, I might miss out on the struggle, if you will, and the appreciation of going through those times. Now, why some people may sit in the pity for too long, maybe they just don't know how to get out of it. Maybe they put their all into an adventure, they're all into a job, they're all into creating their own business, if you will, and it just doesn't go as planned. Sometimes people really struggle with that and they sit in it, and before too long, there's some devastating impacts from that.
So, we did talk about cognitive reframing. We're going to tell you how to do that in a minute, but we want to give you this background to kind of understand. So like you said, it's a lived experience. Everyone experiences life through their, and assigns meaning to their lived experiences, like you just said.
Yes, that's actually a term that we use in psychology as well, called phenomenology. It's a tongue twister, if you will. But that just basically means that anything and everything that happens to you in life has no inherent meaning. No inherent meaning whatsoever. But we as humans assign meaning to things that we go through. So to give a quick example, as we jump into the reframing, is let's say Nikki and I work for company A and we both get let go. So me being positive Patty over here, I might be like, you know what? It was my time to go anyway. I'm going to start that new adventure I've been thinking about, or I'm finally going to, live in my passion, do what I've always wanted to. This is my opportunity. But Nikki might be like, wow, I wasn't good enough. I gave all these years to this company. I'm unworthy. I'm not seen as valuable. So as you can see, the same exact situation happened to both of us, but we assigned different meanings to it based on the power of acceptance and based on how we view our lives.
And so we create these lenses. I like how you described that too. So I think of that description as like a camera lens, right? So lens A is just plain as you see the world, and then you have the yellow filter, and then you have the blue filter, and like these different lenses you can put on top of it. That's how we see the world. Each of us sees it differently. Like you said, we can both experience the same thing and assign meaning to it differently. And so we start to develop these lenses from when we're toddlers, almost immediately in life, right? So from childhood, from our family, from our value system, we learn from others, we start to create cognitive distortions, which we've talked about in the past. Like avoidance is a cognitive distortion, right? Like
it's like an eclectic, can't talk today, mix. And like every person we meet, we kind of take pieces of them into our lives. And that's how we can create those different lenses we see through.
Yeah, and so the people who truly accept, right, who don't sit in the pity and who don't automatically go to the positive, the people who truly accept are able to filter through all of those lenses at once, right? And kind of see all of the different pieces for what they are. But so often we forget we have that lens on the camera and we just keep clicking and clicking and clicking, and that's why we get stuck in those brain patterns. And so, the power of reframing is one of those things that can learn to help you switch through those lenses.
I think it's important sometimes as well to utilize reframing, because a lot of us may have a negative mindset, if you will, or see the glass as half empty, or just we've been conditioned as we've grown up and had these different experiences to kind of be pessimistic, if you will. So being able to reframe means looking at your negative thoughts, looking at your negative feelings and behaviors, and assigning a more positive meaning to it. Should we jump into some examples?
Let's do all of the examples of reframing.
Examples. Okay.
Yeah, because reframing is, like you said, finding the positive. It's finding noble intent. It's creating empathy for others. And again, it's changing the lens. And you can reframe the same event in 6 different ways, and all of them are correct. So the more lenses you can learn to filter through, the more you can sit in acceptance.
Right. So let's see. Let me give you an example.
You want me under the bus first?
Oh, always, always. You go to work and you're happy, you're cheery, and you see a coworker, hey, how's your day? They snap on you. They give you a snarky comment, roll their eyes, and walk past you. How would you reframe that in your mind?
So I can sincerely say I reframe everything all of the time in my mind. It's how I was trained, like through therapy. So I can honestly say in a split second, my mind would first think of, oh my gosh, what happened to this person this morning? And I'll think of different examples. You know, are they having difficulty with their spouse? Did they not sleep last night? Are they having health issues they're too embarrassed to tell me about? Are they financially struggling? Oh wow, they haven't learned to cope with their emotions. How sad is that they're X years old and don't know how to deal with these negative emotions, that they don't feel confident enough to share or express that appropriately. So when someone instantly snaps at me, I think of those things like, wow, this is where they're at because this is their action that they gave me for me being friendly. So by me being friendly and then giving a negative interaction, that's not something wrong with me. That's all of these things lined up behind them. And it almost makes me feel sorry, not in a pity way, just like, wow, I'm sorry that you haven't learned to cope.
I love how you reframe that, but sometimes, sorry, that sounds like thunder over here. Sometimes people will experience or encounter somebody that gives them a negative response back and automatically think, oh my God, what did I do wrong? Like, did I say something? Did I do something? Did I come off as offensive? Maybe they're feeling like they weren't accepted in that moment, right? So there's many different ways that you can see a situation and try to reframe it. Again, when you think about the glass half full, you're probably going to take on your perspective, understanding that everybody has their own experiences. Under the phenomenology, everybody assigns their own meaning to different situations. So it's okay to kind of sit in the moment and ask yourself or explore the different reasons why something may be taking place, and reframe it for the better.
Yeah, so reframing is, yes, it's finding the good, but it's not just like trying to assign a simple meaning. Like, well, this happened to me because I was meant to overcome aggressive people. Like, no, like what is behind the aggression? Understanding it at a more global level, creating empathy. Okay, let me give you an example. So we did a work example. Let me think. Okay. And I'm not saying Tommy would do this, it's just you're married, so I'm gonna say husband. You ask your husband how his day was, and he says, okay, and you ask him to explain more, and then he snaps at you. He's like, why are you always grilling me? What do you want me more to say? Blah, 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 and just gets really frustrated with you.
Well, one, that doesn't happen often, but two, it does occasionally, right? I am such an inquisitive person. I'm always asking questions. How are you feeling? What are you doing? So if he snaps on me, my first thought might be, okay, Taylor, you're asking too many questions again. The man just walked in the door. He had a stressful day. But then I might also think, okay, so he's going through a lot of transitions at work. So maybe he's feeling a little bit overwhelmed. Maybe he's feeling those intense mixed feelings. And then I'm coming home and asking him all these questions. So when I try to reassign or reframe that, I just feel like he just needs some space. I'm doing too much up front. Give him his space, let him go, and try to come back later.
Yeah, so instead of thinking, oh no, he doesn't love me, he's frustrated with me, I didn't do something right, it's, okay, again, this is on him. I just asked a question. Why is he acting in this way? And it helps you be able to then circle back to it and have that conversation in maybe a different way.
Right. And again, guys, that's definitely the power of acceptance. Like, when you can reframe things for the better and kind of stay away from those negative thoughts, negative interactions, the blaming, and just learning to accept things for what they are, and working hard to assign different meanings to something, that can really be uplifting for you and help you see life through a different lens.
And so we gave 2 examples of kind of switching to the positive. So for self-disclosure then, and maybe you can give an example.
Your turn?
Yeah. You know, I think of reframing because we talked about it's okay to reframe and still sit in icky feelings. And if you have been following us, you know that we love the scientific word of icky. We use it all the time. So it's okay to sit in icky feelings. So an example of that in my life, I can think that really stuck out. You know, there was times in my past where like, I really struggled financially. You know, I just wasn't making enough to cover my bills, no matter how hard I worked. Or when I finally would save money, you know, like after I bought my house, the air conditioner broke, or this broke, or the roof caved in, or like whatever the example may be. I'm like, wow, as soon as I get a chance, I just feel like I'm always going to live paycheck to paycheck. And that was an icky feeling because those who know me, I am all about budgeting. Like I look at my budget probably 17 times a day. Like it's just.
She does. And she'll call me and say, Taylor, can I review my budget with you? I'm like, sure. At this point, I can tell you what it is, but if she just wants to hear it out loud, reframe it, whatever she needs to do, accept her budget, you know?
Yeah. But there was a time when like it was concerning, right? Now I look at it for like, I think more positive reasons, but nonetheless. So what I had to do in that moment of acceptance and reframing, first, I accepted it. This feeling sucks. I hate having to worry if I can buy this extra $5 cup of coffee this week. It's okay to not be happy and not having financial freedom. Like it's okay to have an icky feeling and it's okay to not be happy about it. The way I reframed that situation was I'm having the opportunity because I'm forced to like learn how to coupon, which is something I didn't know how to do when I started out in life. Had I not been forced to, I can promise you I never would have like tried. Like it just was not something on my list of things to do. So it allowed me the opportunity, it forced me to have motivation to learn new techniques and to be savvy. And now at this time in my life, when I do have financial freedom more so, I still use those same couponing things. My significant other always laughs at me because I'm like, hang on, let me cut this coupon. He's like, it's 50 cents. I'm like, but it's 50 cents.
Right.
Not necessarily, it doesn't come out of necessity anymore, but it's good habits that I got into that I still enjoy doing. And so that's how I reframe that is it allowed me an opportunity to learn something that will carry with me and hopefully I can teach my kids someday too.
That reminds me also of what you just self-disclosed to us. That was an example of a no for you, right? You just shared, just to recap, you've always had this idea of financial freedom, but you found yourself living paycheck to paycheck to paycheck, which many of us have experienced at one point in our life or are experiencing in this moment. But you didn't necessarily allow that no to get you down.
No.
You didn't allow that no or not having enough money to buy your $5 cup of coffee, if you will, just make you sit and wallow and be like, you know what, I can't do anything. This is bad. Poor me, poor me. You changed your lens and you were able to say, you know what, I'm going to make this work for me, which was a beautiful way of you experiencing a closed door and deciding I'm going to take another path. Like maybe this is a no right now, but I'm going to take a different path. And now you've developed these great skills that you have all these different doors open for you and allowed you to see life through a different lens and accept a new way of life. So
what's something that you reframed that was serious in your life?
That's a good question. She's putting me on the spot, making me think. I had to kind of reframe just the way I guess I view certain relationships, certain friendships in my life. I've always been the person that lets people do whatever, say whatever, and come back to me. And I had a friend actually point that out, I want to say maybe a year ago. She was like, Taylor, such and such did this to you. I don't understand why you're still their friend. I don't understand why you give so many chances. And to me, I think it was the fear of losing connections with people. So I just had to reframe that as everybody goes through their own journey, their own growing pains. They're coming into a new person or stepping back into some of the trauma that they've been in. And just being able to reframe and understand that everybody's in a different space in their life. And instead of letting people get over on me, if you will, or treat me how they want, just having that conversation and saying, what's happening for you? Speaking up, saying, I don't like that you said that you did that, or that you think that. Having an adult conversation about it, getting it all out in the open and moving forward. I think that was one of the biggest things that I had to accept because I'm such a people person. I'm an extrovert. She knows this. I love to go out and just be around people. So it's difficult for me to kind of reframe that and learn that it's okay to let go of some relationships.
So I love, you pointed out several examples there that I think tie everything in. You accepted it, but you didn't accept it I think people think of acceptance sometimes as I'm not going to say anything.
Mm-hmm.
You accepted the situation for what it was.
Mm-hmm.
You accepted your feelings. You still had a difficult and vulnerable conversation.
Right.
But you were able to reframe before you had that conversation so that
Right.
you didn't come with the blamey finger pointing.
Right.
You were able to have an adult conversation because you reframed first.
Yes.
Right? And then, like you said, you understand that everyone's at where they're in their own journey.
Right.
And so I think that's the key of acceptance in this world, globally, with a micro level, with our friendships. Everyone is on their own journey. So we can certainly support, encourage, give tips. But that is all we as people can do. We cannot force someone to go faster or slower on their journey, just like we shouldn't be forced to do that either.
Right.
And I think that's the beauty in acceptance doesn't mean you agree. It doesn't mean you don't communicate or stand up for what you believe in or what's right. But you accept that everyone is at a different path. And then accepting your own path and knowing that, that doesn't mean you don't try to change it. When I was financially struggling, of course, I looked for opportunities to increase my wealth, but I also didn't sit in that and let it bring me down until it happened, right? So I didn't accept the situation and not changing it, but I accepted that right now until it changes. This is where I'm at, and I'll keep trying until it happens, and then it did.
So for those of you who are watching right now, please drop in the comments. We see them down on the side over here. What is something that you've experienced in your life that you're having trouble reframing, or something that you were able to work through by reframing, not even knowing that you actually did that?
So we do have a question from Mandy. She asked, Mandy, hi, I just recognized who that was. We know her, hi. She said, can you say that again? So we can support people, we can encourage them, and even provide tips. I would say, personally, I like to stray away from advice or opinions unless someone asks me for it. But tips in like, hey, just so you know, this helped me when I was going through this time, or I read this thing, maybe it's good for you. That's very different than saying you should do this, which is advice, right? So we can support, encourage, and give good tips if we have any, and then let them be. And that's perfectly okay. And I think that's when you'll find that you have more influence, and that people come to you, and that also you don't hold on to that anger anymore because you accept people for what they are. And you can kind of laugh about it. Maybe you'll have icky feelings here and there in moments, but that moment is 5 or 10 minutes and not dwelling on it.
I agree. So not to really change the subject of reframing, if you will, but let's kind of dig deep into, I feel like I want to speak to the people who have made plans this year, if you will, or who have saw a different vision for their lives, but they received a no. And I have heard this saying almost my entire life, that when humans make plans, or when you make plans, God laughs. So I can share, there's been many times where I planned something and I thought it was going to be great. I was ready to go, and then somebody didn't respond. Somebody told me actually no. What else was there? Or just the whole itinerary of my dream changed. So let's kind of speak to that, how somebody could reframe that type of situation. With coronavirus, I know a lot of people have lost their jobs. So we did touch on this in the beginning, but what do you think? Like, how could somebody reframe and see something in a more positive view when it comes to that?
Yeah, so first we have to accept, right? So accepting is, wow, this sucks. Maybe you're gonna throw in some expletives in there. I don't know. Like if I lost my job and I was struggling, I don't know how gracefully I would accept, but I'm going to accept, right? And if you're really talented, you shall gracefully accept. But you're gonna say, this is really unfortunate. This is horrible. I hate this. Sit in that. Sit in it as often as you need to.
I think that's probably the most important thing, is sitting in it. A lot of times we will experience something in our lives and we don't sit in it. Like society has kind of taught us to steamroll through situations. Oh, this happened to me. Okay, move on to the next thing. It's important to sit in it, experience the ickiness.
So I think, for those who, you might think we're giving you contradictory opinions, and we're not. We're telling you to sit on it, but then reframe and move on. Yes, we're telling you both. So I'm going to give an analogy. Sitting in your emotions to me is like an ocean wave. So let's say you're standing at the edge of the ocean. The wave comes up, just like your feelings. It tickles your feet and your shins. You feel it, and then it disappears. And then another feeling, another wave comes up, tickles your feet. You feel it, you let it go. That is how, I hate using this word should. That is how you should feel feelings. They're like waves. You know that there's going to be 1,000 different waves in a day. They're going to come, touch you, and go. So in your example, like how can I reframe losing your job? And we're by no means firstly trying to minimize this. We're just trying to give maybe an example you can relate to. Accept the icky feeling of the waves. You're going to go through 1,000 different waves: grief, loss, sadness, anger. You're going to feel all the different feelings.
All of the waves.
When it comes, feel it and then let it go. And then you're going to cognitively reframe. Do you want to give an example of reframing, or do you want me to, or we both can?
If I'm going to reframe the job loss thing, of course, I'm going to go to the positive Patty mindset, but just accepting, sitting in and saying, okay, my job has been lost. I feel bad about this. I feel uncertain about this. I'm going to sit in that and let myself understand that I might not be happy about these feelings, but I'm going to accept it, and then start planning for it moving forward and saying, okay, maybe this job wasn't for you. Maybe this job wasn't for you. Maybe it's time for you to go apply to that fashion design school you've always been thinking about. Maybe it's time to do that and get started with those steps.
Yep. So you can reframe it by, this is a new opportunity to reevaluate what I want. You can also reframe it. There's more than one reframe, right? There's more than one lens. Getting into a different routine and figuring out what routine actually works for you. So if you're at home with your kids or yourself, whatever the case may be, with your job, you've been waking up, you've been working a 9 to 5, and that was your consistent thing. You thought you liked that, but now that you've not had a schedule, yes, you might be up late because you're stressing about finances, whatever. But for the most part, you're realizing like, wow, I actually prefer to stay up late and sleep in, or wow, I actually like to get up at 5 a.m. because you've allowed the freedom of not having constraints and time restrictions, and you can start to get back and reset to like your body's homeostatic place. Right. So it's the opportunity to know what really works for you routine-wise and what doesn't, because your schedule's wide open.
Everything that we're talking about makes me want to jump back up to the quote that we opened with, and that is, of course, there is no formula for success except an unconditional acceptance of life and what it brings. Like you just shared, Nikki, sometimes the rug can be pulled from underneath of us. Sometimes the door is slammed hardcore in our face with a no. That doesn't mean you're not successful. That doesn't mean good things happen to you. That doesn't mean that bad things are always attracted in your life. Remember that term phenomenology, and that we assign meanings to things. There is no inherent meaning to what happens to you. When you think about the future, or when you think about experiencing those no's and having to accept it, remind yourself that everything happens for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. And when you think about fear or faith, when it comes to uncertainty, why not choose faith? Why not choose to move forward with faith, knowing and trusting in your own ability and skills? Why not choose that instead of having to be stuck in fear, having to be stuck in uncertainty and wallowing around in that pity for a long time? And that does start with the first step, acceptance.
And so we have these orders, but remember, it's also like it's an oscillating disc, right? So you're going to accept, you're going to sit in it, you're going to reframe. And then after you reframe, you might have some different feelings again. Then you have to accept and sit in those, and then maybe reframe that. It's an ongoing, it's a journey, right? It's an ongoing process. And that's the beauty of it, because you can always cycle back through it. And by doing that, you guys have heard me say this 1,000 times. Now I will say it 1,001 times. Our brains, because of those lenses we learn and those experiences, develop certain neurological pathways. Like we can see them in fMRI scans. We know how our neurons fire. So by learning to do this process along with the other processes we've taught you, it will start to literally change your brain, that we could see it in a scan. Like it physically will change. And then that physically changes that lens, right? Or changes that lens in your life. And then you start to feel better. You start to have more acceptance. And to me, when I think of acceptance, I think of peace. Like acceptance equals a peaceful life.
I love that.
Right? It's just that.
I love that.
It's just good. Even when things are bad, life is good. And it's not because I had to think about it. It's not because I had to like try to jot down like what was good about this day. Like I just always have that peaceful feeling.
I'm so glad that she said this, because we never had this conversation. So I'm just going to bring it up on camera, right? So personally, my husband has been experiencing some weird health stuff, which has been making me have my own manifestations of some weird health stuff. And I'm always future oriented, looking on Google, trying to self-diagnose.
That was a whole separate issue we went through.
Me, him, everything like that. But if I would have just learned to reframe and see the positive of things, or just accept what's happening and move through it with what's what's going on and take it day by day, step by step, I don't think I would have brought on this much anxiety, this much manifestation of pins and needles and catastrophizing, if you will. I've never been a catastrophizer, but that's come about for me lately. But yeah, acceptance equals peace. And I think that is such a powerful statement. When you accept things that are happening in the moment, I just feel peace now, actually, that you said that. You can understand and trust God and understand that maybe you're experiencing this no right now, but He's setting you up for a bigger meaning down the line.
And this also ties into what we said on how you can support people. You can support, encourage, and give tips. I tried to reframe some things for her for months.
This happened, this has been going on since July, and just now, October 7th, things are starting to go back on the ups. So yeah, she's been trying to reframe things for me for like 3 or 4 months at this point.
Yeah, but I did not force her. I knew the answers that she didn't already have. I would gently tell them to her, and then like 2 weeks later, she's like, Nikki, I just thought of this. I'm like, I literally said that 2 weeks ago, Taylor. But I didn't get frustrated, and I didn't try to force what I knew would help her. We're therapists, we're best friends, our lives are weirdly entangled in all the ways possible. I could have given her all the advice in the world. I chose not to because I knew she wasn't ready to hear it, and I was like, she's just got to figure this out on her own. Like at the critical moments, I de-escalated her. I was like, well, she's got to do it on her own time. Like, she's a big girl, she's smart. You had all the skills and supports needed. You had to figure it out, and when you were ready. And then when you were ready, I was right here for you. Yeah. And that's the power of acceptance too, is accepting things for what they are. Right. I had to accept where you're at in the journey, which was annoying for her and everyone else around her.
I was calling everyone, Nikki, I think my husband has this, or Mom, these are the signs and symptoms I'm seeing. Like, what should I do? Yes, even at 30 years old, I still call my mom and ask her what to do.
And then she would call us back to back. And then her mom would text me and be like, Taylor's blowing up my phone. I was like, I just got off the phone with her. Your turn, Elaine.
Yes.
You take care of her for a minute.
And now I'm kind of wishing when I was in the throes of it that you would have said, Taylor, acceptance equals peace.
I will remember that for
the next situation.
Yeah.
Right. And I see somebody said, that is powerful. Put that on a shirt. So we've been into kind of merchandising with our business lately. So we might try to figure out how to put that on a shirt, because I really do feel like that's powerful. And I think that's my biggest takeaway from what we talked about today.
And so let's give this to an example of like the current political climate. So no, we're not going to give our views and we're not going to go into detail, but I think we can all agree that we all disagree, and it's divisive no matter what side you're on. Yeah. Right. And how you look at it and the lens that you see the current political climate through. By politics, I mean social justice and coronavirus and things that we think shouldn't be politicized and are, just the full spectrum, right? One, we accept. So how do you accept that? And let's just go through the list. And I'll tell you what I do and what you do.
Okay.
I accept it by looking at, this is the world we live in everywhere to varying degrees, right? Like, this is, I hate to say it, but it's normal. It doesn't mean it's okay. But when you look at it on the global spectrum, every country has gone through its ups and downs and throws, and you can look back through history and it's literally repeating itself. So one, I accept that this is human nature. How do you say, and I sit and accept, that's how I firstly accept. How do you accept?
I accept basically the same thing that you said, but also just keeping an open mind. Like you said, this current climate, you could say it's hot outside, the person sitting beside you is going to say it's cold, and you guys could argue all day about it. I just like to keep an open mind. I like to hear what people have to say and obviously make my own assertions or judgments from that and move forward. I accept that everybody has an opinion.
Yep. So then,
but that doesn't mean it's the be all end all. Like, your opinion is this, my opinion is this. That doesn't mean that I don't have to ever involve myself with you anymore, unless your morals and your lens completely are the opposite of mine. Right. Then I might have to rejudge that.
Right. And then I sit in the feelings. I sit in the feelings, again, briefly. I call my 80-year-old Nana, I'm going to throw you under the bus if you're watching, who has very strong opinions. And then I appreciate her sass. And we have the same opinions.
She is sassy. I love her.
But she will say like the most outrageous phrases. I'm just like, and it makes me chuckle. So I sit in the feelings, and I sit and I complain with her. So I sit in those feelings by saying, I'm not happy. Yeah, I agree with you. And this is bull crap and blah, 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 blah. And I allow about 10 minutes of me just saying whatever I want to say, judgment free, because I know she's on the same page with me. So that's how I sit in my feelings. I know it's okay. I don't try to push them away.
Right.
Like, man, I'm mad. I'm mad about this, and that's okay to be mad right now. How do you sit?
not to steal your answer verbatim, but I think it's been a journey for me when it comes to accepting and sitting in emotions, because I do operate at such a high level of positivity. I don't want to miss things. I want to allow myself to feel bad, feel sad, feel scared, feel uncertain, just so I know what that feels like, so that I can really truly appreciate when things get back on the up and ups and look back and say, wow, I allowed myself to experience. I allowed myself to feel. I allowed myself to assign a specific meaning to what I went through, and like kind of stamp that in my chapter.
So you sit in the feelings so that you know joy is coming.
Yes.
And then reframing is the third step, right? And so I reframe this as, I think it started out as like, wow, what a great opportunity to unify stronger, because we're so divided right now. And then in more recent times, I've reframed it as, this is the opportunity for me to get more involved than what I ever have been, because I feel like I have to, because I'm not okay. So I had to get to the point where I felt so bad and angry that I'm now like, new opportunity has arisen. It's forced motivation to do something on the ground. Kind of like the financial crisis. Like, I only find motivation sometimes when I'm backed into a corner, and I have recently felt backed into a corner. So it's allowed me the opportunity to put forth more effort than what I ever have. And that makes me feel good, because I'm doing good things for other people, which then brings me joy. So all around, I feel good now.
Right.
At times, and then I feel bad again. But how do you reframe this?
So when I reframe, I'm going to think about what I just shared and disclosed a few minutes ago about this whole health uncertainty stuff going on. For me personally, I know you've shared that you've been through a lot of different things in your life, but me, I've pretty much led an untouched life, if you will. Everything's turned out well. It's been a blessing. I haven't really experienced too much trauma and turmoil. But just to be able to go through these situations allows me to better understand the lives and experiences of other people, and be able to bond and connect with my clients on a deeper personal level. I know that's kind of what we bring when we work with clients. We're genuine, we're empathetic, we can dig deep, we can see the meaning, because you can't see the forest of the trees. Had to throw that one in there. But just going through something that I consider to be pretty traumatic and life-changing is helping me understand, like, whew, you were meant to go through this. God is putting you through this so you can understand that, like you said, you actually said this to me, when you start having kids, like, what are you going to do when your kid falls down with a scraped knee? Are you going to spend all this time on Google figuring out like how to diagnose them? Or what if they're sick one day? Like, are you going to jump on Google and try to figure out why they're throwing up? I think it's a test. I'm like, I reframe it as something that I need to go through to be stronger and come out on the other end with multiple experiences.
Yeah, and I know you like reframe that politically too. Like, when I have kids, I'm going through this now so that I know how to help raise, because I have children of color, right? And so, yeah, I hope those are good examples of how you accept. And I love that, because I do love the definition of acceptance. I don't like how it's thrown around in society. Like, acceptance means it's okay. Nope. We're just accepting it. It is what it is, right? We're accepting it for what it is. That doesn't mean we have to agree with it.
Right.
So yeah, I think the biggest takeaway I hope for you guys today is that we accept, we sit in it, and then we reframe it.
Absolutely. Guys, I want to end on this with a quote with you guys. It says, "A negative mind will never give you a positive life." So if you didn't take anything away from the show, take away the fact that you have to reframe situations. If you're somebody who inherently or naturally assigns negative meanings to things, take a step back and apply reframing to your life. Try to understand the noble intent behind things. Try to understand why you may have received a no. Try to understand, like, there's a different meaning behind that. Maybe you weren't ready, right? God's trying to protect you from that. Maybe that's not the path you were supposed to go down, period. And again, God's trying to protect you from that. Or maybe there's another route that's going to take you the long way instead of the straight path there. Get rid of that negative mind. Try to develop some positivity into your life. Learn to accept things as they are. Start reframing, and I feel like you guys are going to be on a better path.
Absolutely.
So as always, please follow us on all social media platforms. We have Instagram page at BKLLC19, and that's BKLLC19. And then on Facebook, you can follow us at Bryant and Katsaounis Life Coaching.
We also have LinkedIn, and you can go to our website at www.visiondrivencoaching.com.
So guys, please reach out to us if you have any questions. We love to follow up with some scientific facts, or we just love to just have a genuine conversation with you and help you shine light on some of the things that are going on in your life. If you didn't feel comfortable dropping down in the comments some things that you're struggling to reframe, we are here to help guide you through that. So as always, we will see you next week, Wednesdays at 4:30, where we will explore the oh God, I lost our line. But we explore the connections between mindsets and mental health. Sorry guys, it's been a long 2 weeks.
See ya.
See you guys. Have a great